There's actually a story from the place we get the cola on the banks of the Moa River in Sierra Leone. There's a spirit in the river called Mami Wata, who is a kind of a mermaid, I suppose. And she is both good and bad. She'll bring blessings to the village, but she'll also be a rascal if you don't respect the river or her spirit. And we felt like that was a pretty good African interpretation of that Eastern idea of karma. So in something of a mashup, the label is an angel and a devil circling each other around the world, words karma cola.
Welcome to Uprising. Each episode looks inside what it takes to lead the most dynamic and successful cultural movements. Some of them in the business world, some in the social realm, some in politics, and some in between, to see why people start uprisings. What gives those initiatives momentum and keeps them going? And most important, what lessons can you learn from these movements and how to apply them to your business and even personal life? Let's explore the secret to sparking movements that move people into action.
Passionate ideas.
Controversial ideas.
Uprising ideas.
The power is now in the hands of anyone.
To start a cultural movement.
Your movement.
To
move the world.
Today's Uprising Pod is brought to you by warbyparker.com. Get a free 5-day home try-on at www.warbyparkertrial.com/uprising. 5 pairs, 5 days, 100% free.
Welcome to the Uprising Podcast. Today we're talking with Simon Coley, founder of Karma Cola, which is a new movement to get the world to drink a new kind of Fairtrade organic cola. The world drinks 1.9 billion Coke drinks every day, but the African people who discovered cola don't receive a penny from this obviously very popular fizzy drink. So Karma Cola decided to do something about that. Create a movement that inspires people to buy a bottle Karma Cola, and the proceeds go back to the people who grow cola in Boma village in Sierra Leone. In addition to paying farmers a fair price, Karma Cola works directly with cola nut farmers in Boma village in Sierra Leone to help rebuild their crops, their livelihoods. Obviously that goes a long way in helping that part of the world become a more sustainable place for their communities, and it's good for everyone. How did you get this Karma Cola started?
Yeah, good question. About 10 years ago, two friends and I were thinking about what we would do next in our careers. One of them, Chris Morrison, had recently sold an organic drinks company that he started, and he's a pioneering organics guy in New Zealand. And Matthew, his brother, had been working in the Treasury Department in New Zealand, but was sort of looking for something to do next. And I'd been working for a business in New Zealand called 42 Below that made vodka and branded itself on being clean and pure from New Zealand. And we were all kind of thinking, we'd met up. We were thinking about the state of the world. Chris and I had recently been at a conference around climate change and, what we would do as sort of leaders in the community to do something about that. Chris had recently been travelling in Samoa surfing and had discovered that there was a lot of produce there that wasn't getting to market. And many years ago, New Zealand bought a lot of bananas from Samoa and paid something like 20% of the GDP of Samoa came from the sale of fresh bananas to other places in the Pacific. And we were thinking perhaps we could do something to rebalance that we could bring in fresh organic produce from the islands and sell it in New Zealand and help our neighbours. So we sort of started on these altruistic foundations that we thought there would be interest from people we knew in New Zealand that would buy these products from other parts of the world. And one thing led to the other, and we started bringing these bananas into the country. And we discovered very quickly we knew nothing about importing fresh produce. So we had to learn very quickly that if we were going to be in business, we needed to be a bit smarter and understand our supply chain a bit better. And we started drying these bananas and sending them to New Zealand packaged, and that began a business that we called All Good. And we discovered that a lot of people in New Zealand actually wanted to buy fair trade and organic bananas. And after we'd done that for a wee while, we thought, well, this seems to be working. There's obviously this latent demand by a certain type of customer for, food and drink that has, more going for it than just what you see on a supermarket shelf. And that perhaps we should explore that further.
Which came first, just as a question, was it your desire to try to make the world a little better, or your desire to sell a new kind of cola?
I think they were pretty much intertwined. I mean, I was interested. I mean, the cola idea came out of that. We were thinking, well, what do we do next? And obviously, bananas aren't very shelf stable. We really wanted something that would give us a little less volatility in our business. But we also learned in looking around for ideas that fact that you mentioned earlier on, there's a lot of cola consumed in the world, and we didn't really know where cola came from. So we looked around and discovered that in West Africa, cola originated, and the people that were in places like in the Tiwa community in Sierra Leone weren't really benefiting from a brand or series of products that were pretty well known throughout the world. And we thought, a bit like with the bananas, perhaps we could do something to balance that. So, we were pretty naive, and we started looking around and found that through the Fairtrade movement that we were involved in, that there was a person in Sierra Leone called Albert Tucker who we met, who was able to find a place for us to source some sample cola from. They sent 5 kilograms of it in the post, and we started experimenting with it, and in a few weeks we had some recipes, and a few hundred trials later we came up with a recipe we thought tasted great, and that we thought people would like, and we started bottling it. And about 6 months after that, after we'd got the first sample of nuts of cola, we sent a box of it back to the people in the Tiwa and Boma village who'd supplied us with the ingredient, and they were quite surprised.
So do you think your success and the growth of Karma has been related to your passion for trying to wrong a right? I mean, you discovered obviously in this process that cola comes from Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone's a country that's had insurmountable problems over the years. Is this something that just you felt like, wow, this is something that just appeals to me as a human being? I want to be a part of this. I want to right this wrong. I want to help them generate more revenues. Can you walk us through a little bit of that thinking?
Yeah, at first it was just the challenge of an idea. We thought, well, is it possible? I mean, and asking that question kind of led us to finding people that could help us do make the product and start selling it. And, I don't know that I understood exactly where that would take us when we started, but, very soon I realized that it was possible. People were interested in our story, even when it was quite a young company. The idea of a product that did good in those ways was very appealing to enough people for us to sell a few drinks. But I guess the thing that I hadn't considered is the responsibility that comes with that. So the first time we visited the villages after we'd sold a few thousand cases, I suppose, was that realizing that it was real, that these people were now reliant on us for income. And that it was a proper trade relationship, and that it was possible, I guess, the balance in that question of yours to bring together those two poles, the desire to do some good, to be a good citizen of the world, and to be able to live off it, to make some money in order to grow the business and survive off it.
There is somewhat of an intuition that I think a certain generation has that, tackling bigger issues other than just generating profit makes sense, right? It may not be a strategic part of the immediate sort of business plan. It may have been inherent in the way you live your life. I do find that New Zealanders have a tendency of being more macro aware of the world and the issues that, people face beyond your national borders than perhaps other countries. So it's probably just part of the, your DNA and your makeup and the thinking that, right or wrong, do something, be part of something that is going to try to, fix something out there. So I don't want to describe it as naivete because I actually think it's a business strategy, right? Because the less you know, the more courageous, the more fearless you are. And I think success breeds success. And, if I were to sit down and say to you, if I go through all the reasons why starting a cola would be a bad idea, you'd probably say,
Yeah.
that's probably a bad idea. And then the world doesn't move forward. So there's something to be said about being, what do they say, blue-eyed and a little bit on the naive side. So, that's also an advantage, actually, to be from New Zealand. That's cool. I'm from Canada, and Canadians have a little bit of that sort of naivete as well.
One of our key employees is Canadian, and he's very similar. We have a bit of a United Nations in our office in Auckland.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How do you manage that? How does that work?
Oh, it's funny. It's been pretty much serendipity, but we've got a German woman, a Swedish woman, a Canadian man. Albert Tucker, who works for us, is from Sierra Leone. Ukrainian person, English, New Zealand, Australian, and Sierra Leonean. So there's pretty healthy representation.
I find the international teams always come up with really great borderless ideas, and especially when you have people who can be conceptual, and then you have like the Swedes and the Germans to help organize everything.
Exactly.
You're based in the UK or you're based in New Zealand?
My family are in New Zealand, and I'm there most of the time. But I also, because we're expanding into the UK, and we have quite a big team here now, I'm here a few times a year, which is great for me. I quite enjoy being able to work across the world, but it has its challenges.
It certainly is a bit of a commute. I mean, I thought New York City to where I live just outside of Manhattan was tough, but you got a pretty crazy commute there.
Yeah, fortunately, it doesn't happen quite as regularly as most commutes.
For you, the listeners of Scott Goodson's Uprising Pod, Warby Parker is offering a free 5-day home try-on to give you the opportunity to check out their glasses. To get your home try-on today, go to warbyparkertrial.com/uprising. Again, that's warbyparkertrial.com/uprising for your free 5-day home try-on.
So, Karma Cola, great name, by the way. I love the name. For a cola. That's pretty awesome. What have you achieved to date?
We made the drink, which for me was a pretty big achievement, just getting a product out there. Because I think with all of these endeavours, it's often hard to start, but once you've started, then you start learning and kind of improving things. We're in 20 countries now, which is, a testament to the strength of the story, because there's only a few of those countries that we've actively sought to build markets in. Many of them have come from inquiries from distributors or just interested parties, and have been enthusiastic and energetic enough for us to think, well, we should support them, because it would be a crime not to help these people do what they want to do with our product too. So there's something in the story that's given us that kind of extra oomph. I guess measures of success are that we pride ourselves a lot in the look, the style of the design of the packaging, because we realise that, as a kind of a challenger brand, we're not going to be able to spend a hell of a lot on getting customer awareness outside of the real estate that we own, like the bottle and some of our collateral and our website and things like that. So we've put a lot of time into making the labels be as arresting as they can be, as we can make them.
And can you talk a little bit about that, about how you developed that and what the labels represent for you, and just the thinking behind that, because they are really quite amazing.
Yeah, so on the Karma Cola label, the idea was that we would show the yin and yang that's implied by karma. Those two characters, the spirits, which in that West African animism are kind of both faces of one entity. It's drawn in a very sort of folk interpretation of African art, so it's quite charming, I think, and doesn't sound quite as gothic as drawing an angel and a devil on a label might. And the word cola is upside down, sort of like a playing card underneath the word karma, which I don't think is a kind of sensible move in graphic design on packaging. I know many people put half of their brand name upside down on the outside of their products, but it seems to work quite well in the context of what we do. So,
well, I guess if you're drinking it, right, it depends on where the bottle is, up or down.
And I think it encourages you to read the image both ways.
Yeah, it's like writing the word dog on a cow. It makes you kind of scratch your head and go, what?
And that's it, that challenging convention in that way, and being bold enough or thinking it's worthwhile experimenting with it gives you some can take you to places that are pretty arresting. And fortunately for us, this one has had that impact. People do comment to us. It's not just me saying it, but we get a lot of feedback from people liking the look of the label. And the philosophy is always, if we can catch people's eyes first, then perhaps they'll pick it up and taste it. And the next thing that is probably a good measure of our success is that the flavour does meet and exceed people's expectations. That again, from feedback, it tastes like cola. When people say that, I think, oh, that's pretty good. For an organic Fairtrade drink that's made of real ingredients, so if you look at all of the ingredients that go in it, and there's coriander and nutmeg and obviously sugar and cola nut and lemon juice and orange oils and lime oils. There's a whole list of ingredients, but you could recognise all of them, and they're all organic, and I think you can taste those in the product itself. If you really think about the flavours, they're all in the finish. And that was really the challenge we gave ourselves. Could we make a great tasting cola out of organic ingredients? And then the third thing that happens is that if you kind of like the look of it and you like the taste of it, perhaps we've earned the right for you to, or we've encouraged people to read what's on the back label, and that's where they can discover where the cola came from, and that they've actually just benefited the people who grew it by buying the drink, because some of the proceeds have gone back to them.
I love the Gingerella design, somewhat of a paying homage to Jane Fonda. I never thought of I guess the ginger look does work well with ginger. It's great. And the lemony dude. You definitely have a cast of characters here that you could do a lot with. Very, very visually stunning. Talk a little bit about your motto, drink no evil.
Oh, drink no evil, right.
Who is the evil, and what are you telling people not to drink?
Yeah, it was interesting because it sort of came from me thinking, or us thinking, we've got three very different drinks there, and what kind of brings them together. And that idea that all of them have been produced from sustainable ingredients, and they kind of are fun enough for us to play that game with our customers. That soft drinks aren't essential. No one needs to buy them. They can drink water for hydration. But when we're eating, street food, salty, hot food, fish and chips or burgers or, Chinese food or any other kind of nationality, it's quite nice to have a soft drink, a carbonated soda to wash it down. And if you're one of those people who's looking for sort of those new experiences, especially in street food we're finding now, where people will spend some money on a gourmet burger or a really beautifully put together taco or, Cuban sandwich or a Korean roll, that probably want to complement it with something that has had the same care in its creation, like our drinks. And I was thinking that it's quite nice to contrast that. And so the drink no evil sort of popped out of that it was a catchy enough idea that a drink could do good. And like I say, sodas being sort of effervescent and not that important, we thought maybe we could imply that there was some good that came of the purchase.
Well, I think in the history of humanity, colas probably don't rate up there with, great scientific changes in agriculture or technology, but they can in some way offer subsistence farmers a little bit of additional revenue. And so I could definitely see there's a way that you're helping to make the world better. Also, the ingredients are better for you, if you do compare yours to standard cola ingredients. So there's a benefit for the user, and there's a metaphysical benefit for the user.
That was the thing that we learned in that early business, or that's still running. The idea behind our banana importing, which we called All Good, was that we could be, good for the environment, good for people, and as good for our customers as a fizzy drink could be. We never claimed that a fizzy drink's a health drink, but that if we could meet all those sorts of criteria, then we feel good about making it. Everyone wants to be involved in that process, and good about offering it to people.
How has the growth gone? So you created your first Devil and Angel bottled cola, and then you put it in the store, and what happened? Did it actually fly off the shelves, or?
Fortunately, people started buying it. That was the first thing that happened. And then we realized very quickly that we could be one drink in an array of many other choices. And if we actually wanted the business to succeed, we'd need to sell a few others, especially where we started in New Zealand selling into sort of premium cafes and restaurants. There's usually a fridge that all the soft drinks are in, and for us to make enough money out of this to carry on, we needed to have a few more bottles of different flavours. So Gingerella came next. Chris had started his previous organic drinks business making ginger beer, so he's had a lot of experience in that. And we started looking for ginger, Fairtrade ginger that we could get, and we found some really great Asian ginger in Sri Lanka. And the recipe for Gingerella came from that. And she has a kind of style that's very different to the Karma Cola bottle. Like you were saying, she's kind of this fiery redhead, and the idea behind her is that we would give Mother Nature a bit of a makeover and turn her into this kind of action, admirable woman who's in charge of her life and able to represent all those values. And she's got a whole fan club of people that kind of, I don't know, they sort of adopt her as a bit of an icon.
You could see some T-shirts, definitely.
She's the most popular T-shirt, yeah.
She has a mixture of like Barbarella and Ginger Rogers from Gilligan's Island.
Yeah, yeah.
Sort of sexy, sassy, gingery, tasty.
Yeah.
Do you become her when you drink the Gingerella?
You might need to mix her with a little bit to get that full effect. But yeah, there's a lot of flavor in the drink.
So there could be a Karma cosmetic coming or some form of transformative other liquid or beverage or something. That's cool. Where are you available now? You're not in the United States, I don't think, right? If I'm sitting in New York City, which I am right now, overlooking Madison Square Park, and I'm getting thirsty, I want to drink this Gingerella, can I go and find one here, or do I gotta?
I've sent some to a friend in Boston, but no, I don't. Not in the US yet. We'd love to, but we're really focusing on working out how we do a great job of distributing and selling into the UK and other European markets. But we're in about 20 countries around the world: New Zealand, Australia, Hong Kong, Singapore, Macau, and then all the other countries we're in are on the European continent, and Iceland.
Once you solve, global hunger and war, famine, what's next for humanity? I mean, we're facing huge IT challenges in terms of AI, artificial intelligence. Do you think that you're going to be able to move into that space, the real issues that we all face?
It's interesting. A few months ago, I was in Sierra Leone, where we get our cola from, with the villagers we work with there. And, the thing that happened to me is that I found I couldn't get a signal. So I didn't have a device on me that worked for a week and a half. And it was fantastic. After I'd kind of gotten over the fact that I do check my iPhone every few minutes and felt like I'd sort of lost a limb, I felt a bit liberated. So, and I also learned a bit about myself through watching how things work in that village, how everyone's pretty well in tune with each other. There's only maybe 120 people living in Boma, the main village we work with. What I've observed is that although we're offering them a fund through the foundation we've set up to support their development, they're pretty good. They don't have to have it. They live good lives. They're nowhere near as affluent as we are, but they have a very rich life in the way they treat each other. They can do with the help. We're sending children to school, especially young girls who otherwise wouldn't get a chance to be educated. And we're helping them develop security of supply for food so they don't go hungry, and developing little entrepreneurial programs through microloans so they can set up their own little enterprises. And we're trying to find other produce from the rainforest that they could use to develop other trades so they become more economically independent. But I've always thought, what technology do they need? And the kind of answer was maybe we've got a bit more to learn from them, and that the application of all this fantastic new development kind of needs that understanding of basic humanity. Now, I don't know where we're going with outsourcing our responsibilities for those sorts of things. I'm not sure that AI will solve the problem. Perhaps it will.
No, it's a huge issue. It's a huge. We don't have to go there. I mean, I'm just kind of kidding.
It is that thing, there's such a different view. 2 days after that, I was in LA on the way back to New Zealand, going through that march of Californians against the newly elected leader and thinking, wow, these guys in Sierra Leone have been through 10 years of civil war and they're pretty happy. They've figured out they're resilient. I mean, they've been through tragedy, but they're resilient. And that the things that face us in the West are so different. And why I was wondering how some of the people like Chief Hinua, who's the chief of one of the villages we were in, and speaks very good English, so I was able to spend a lot of time having these sorts of conversations with him. I wondered what he'd think of it if he was in the middle of it.
Well, I was actually part of a presentation at MIT recently, and AI is a significant challenge as we look to the future. I don't think people really understand what it represents. It's pretty freaky scary. Talking about that, what are your plans for the future?
We're thinking about other drinks we might do. I mean, we're well aware of, demand for more interesting flavors and, other formulations that have less sugar in them, things like that. So we're always looking for new ways to do what we do. I think the most important thing for us as a company, given our sort of central mission to be an ethical product, is the foundation that I was referring to before, and how we develop that to be independent, if you like, and for the Karma Cola Foundation to continue to do the work it does in Sierra Leone. And maybe we could broaden its agenda to work with other suppliers that we buy ingredients from. And something else I'm seeing is that there might be an opportunity for us to show other businesses like us how to do that, because there does seem to be a lot of interest in, perhaps being able to find other ingredients in the rainforest that we could help export and transform into goods that people want, because that would create a more robust economy there that has that sort of sustainable future for the people living there, and means that we can protect the rainforest and their own futures. So those are things that challenge me at the moment, like how do we do that, and how do we get the growth we need to be able to reinvest that in building the foundation.
So if you look at what you've achieved and you dream about your future, what advice would you have for young people, old people, any people, I guess, who want to create their own movements, who want to develop a brand, try to change the world, make it a little bit better?
I mean, the first one is just start, that you can prevaricate and try and get the perfect business plan together. But as soon as you start doing it, as soon as you have a product to sell, you start learning and you get that feedback. I guess that's the second thing is, when you're offering something that really does give people true benefit, the response and the advocacy you get from customers can be very powerful. And that's something to respect and to build. So that whole listening to the people who are buying and supporting your product and engaging them and getting them involved is key to success. I guess the third thing is, I keep saying this, but you be careful what you wish for. Like, this is working really well. And now, as I was alluding to before, we've got to be mindful of how the work that we want to do back on the ground with our producers affects their lives, because we want this to be something they own and can direct the results from, rather than us sort of sitting aside from it saying, you have to spend the money that we generate for you on this. We've made sure that in the way the foundation is set up, that anything that goes back into the community is because the people there have asked for it and know that they can develop it further and own the outcome.
That's a little bit of social planning, in addition to coming up with delicious flavors and funky looking bottles.
It's not something we'd end up doing, but it's a great outcome.
Well, it's cool. I mean, and I love the fact that, you run and chew gum at the same time. You're able to both be a drinks entrepreneur, a soda entrepreneur, cola entrepreneur, but at the same time be socially minded. It's great. That's the world we're living in, and we need more people like you. So, Simon, thank you so much for joining us today on the Uprising Pod. Super interesting. If people want to find out more about Karma Cola, where can they go?
karmacola.co.uk or .co.nz, a website with all of our bits and pieces, and at Karma Cola UK on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. You'll probably see the most interesting stuff on that Instagram feed. There's usually a few new outlets that have got our drinks or people who are doing things with our characters on there. every day.
Well, I definitely need my Gingerella t-shirt. If you've got an extra one, just pop it over. And a bottle of one of your delicious, I mean, I don't know if they're delicious, but they look delicious, and pieces of art. I almost think they're like pieces of art with liquid in them because they are so beautifully designed. Anyone listening to this should certainly go to the website, check it out. Thanks so much. It's been a lot of fun, and I wish you all the best.
Appreciate it.
All right, take care, Simon.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you for joining our Uprising today and listening to our show. If you missed the show, or if you want to find out more about who was on, or if you want to learn more about how to create your own Uprising, please go to uprisingmovements.com. You can also download this Uprising program from iTunes. Uprising was produced by Nicola Keneally and Adam Helen, with special help from Melanie Boardman, Karin Drachenberg, Philippa Freeman, Brianna Campbell, Fashad Faroudi, Mark Bruzy, Will Issam, James Politi, and Jonathan Weeks. My name is Scott Goodson, and you've been listening to Uprising. What we can learn about movements and uprisings that are shaping our world in business, in society, and in between. For more on cultural movements and movement marketing, be sure to pick up a copy of the best-selling book Uprising, How to Build a Brand and Change the World by Sparking Cultural Movements, available on Amazon.com. Music for Uprising composed by Charles Duchateau.